Honorable President of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Dr. Alvi, Honorable First Lady, Mrs. Alvi, colleagues, ambassadors, UN Women Chief, ladies and gentlemen. Every year we celebrate International Women's Day. Pakistan also celebrates in February Pakistan's National Women's Day, when women of Pakistan rose against the dictatorship of Ziaul Haq, who was trying to rob women of their rights that they had struggled for since the creation of Pakistan. But let us not forget, women in Pakistan have played a forefront role from the creation of Pakistan. The younger generation feels somehow that the women's struggle shuru hua tha during Ziaul Haq's time. No, that was the third wave. The first wave was in the creation of Pakistan, when the women stood with the male leadership, with Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah in the creation of Pakistan. Then we had the women who in the 60s, during another dictatorship, that of President Ayub, fought and got past the family laws of Pakistan, a very important step in women moving forward with their inheritance rights, with their right given to them in Islam, but codified, right to divorce and so on. So the family laws was a struggle again by the women of Pakistan. तो ये हमारी हिस्ट्री है ख़वातीन की पाकिस्तान में, कि जद्दोजहद करके हमने अपने हकूक़ लिए जो हमारी आइन में अब हैं और जो हमारा मज़हब हमें शुरू दिन से देता था. उसके बाद जो ख़वातीन का स्ट्रगल रहा है वो जेंडर पैरिटी पे रहा है, जेंडर इंक्लूजन पे रहा है, और जो अब हमारी बच्चियां अब जो स्ट्रगल कर रही हैं, चाहे वो औरत मार्च हो, चाहे हया मार्च हो, for this diversity in women's demands, but this is a continuation of our women and their struggle to achieve equality and to fight for their rights. Let's be very clear. It is not something new. अगर आज हमारी बच्चियां प्रोटेस्ट करती हैं या ख़वातीन के हकूक़ के लिए बात करती हैं, तो उनकी माओं ने किया था और हमारी माओं ने भी यही किया था. This is part of our rich tradition of women in politics, women in the struggle for their rights in Pakistan. And why not? One woman decides the fate of a whole family, decides the fate of what future generations will think. How I educate my child will decide how my child will act in society and how they will educate their children. So educating one girl means educating a whole family and thereon a whole generation, which is why education is extremely important for women wherever they may be. दूसरी चीज़ ये, हम ख़वातीन के हकूक़ की बात करते हैं, कई दफ़ा बहुत वेस्टर्न इन्फ्लुएंसेस भी आ जाते हैं. अगर हम हकूक़ की बात करते हैं, सबसे बड़ा हकूक़ ये है कि मैं अपना फ़ैसला खुद करूं. मैंने क्या करना है, किस तरीके से करना है, कवानीन के दायरे में रहते हुए, आइन के दायरे में रहते हुए. That is why today, International Women's Day, we must talk about women everywhere. We must talk about the biases, the Islamophobia that exists, especially in the Western world. Today in the papers I read, Switzerland has put a ban on the burqa, the veil. Why? Why can a nun in a habit walk in public places, enter public offices in European countries, but in many European countries, a woman wearing the veil cannot enter public offices. She cannot wear a symbol of her religion as it's assumed. These are the biases that we fight about. हम कहते हैं पाकिस्तान में हमारे बहुत से मसले मसाइल हैं, ख़वातीन पे जुल्म होता है, तशद्दुद होता है, और हम लड़ रहे हैं उसके लिए. We want to end that violence against women. We want to end the discrimination against women, because not that it's a favor that any government will do. These are our rights in our constitution. These are our rights that the government has as a responsible government to give us. They're not doing a favor. They have to give it because it is their obligation and it is our right to get those rights enshrined in the constitution. But let us also be aware that biases against women exist on many fronts, and a lot of them are embedded in the new rising form of Islamophobia, unfortunately. And we're seeing that in the Western world, which preaches to us about rights. Yes, we know about rights, but please do introspection also. Why are Muslim women being denied their rights? Which brings me to another issue. Why is no one in the West talking about the abuse of the Kashmiri women by Indian security forces? 1991, the mass rape of Kashmiri women took place in Kunan and Pushpora. The case is registered in the Indian courts. Nothing has happened. Many reports are, and Rula, you know, we've discussed this many times. Many EU reports are published on rights of women and so on. Why has India never been chastised about the rape, mass rape of Kashmiri women as a weapon of war? Why has India been allowed to brazenly violate all international conventions it has signed, including the 4th Geneva Convention, which prevents a person belonging to an occupied territory to be removed to a prison in the occupation country? And yet, we have Asya Andrabi, who is suffering in Tira jail in New Delhi, with her, a number of other women. Why has there been no word about it? All human rights reports that come out of the West ignore what is being done to the Kashmiri women. And I think on International Women's Day, because this is not just related to Pakistan, I would be amiss if I did not raise my voice against the total acceptance of the terrorism that is being done by the state, the government of India, against the Kashmiris. And on this day especially, I want to mention the plight of the Kashmiri woman who has been thrown into jail illegally in Delhi, the Kashmiri women who have suffered blindness because of pellet guns. By the way, a weapon that has been banned. It's an inhumane weapon. There's an Inhumane Weapons Convention, that's a short word for it, and India and Pakistan are both signatories to it. But nobody says anything to India. So when we talk about women's rights, let's, especially on International Women's Day, then we must talk about the rights and the protection of women across the world. Not just, yes, we in Pakistan, of course, have to give priority to what is happening to women in Pakistan, but we cannot keep quiet about what is happening to women in other parts of the world. And Kashmir, which is a disputed territory, and it's an integral, Kashmiris are part of Pakistan in spirit, in commitment, and all that needs is for the UN to wake up from its slumber and provide the plebiscite, which they provided to another case which was just like this, which was the creation of East Timor as a separate country. If you look at UN resolutions, just as an aside, but I want to point out, so people remember history. History is very important. Same resolutions in the UN Security Council relating to East Timor as they do to Kashmir. The only difference was the occupation power was a Muslim country, Indonesia, and here the occupation power is the brutal Indian state. So the East Timorese leadership was given Nobel Peace Prizes during their struggle. Why are Sayyid Gilani and Mir Wais and other Kashmiri leaders not being nominated for Nobel Peace Prizes, like the Timorese leaders were, who were fighting a war also against the Indonesian state. So we in Pakistan must remember there is an overriding hypocrisy that pervades the world today. And when yes, we want to struggle for our rights, and we have struggled. I come from a very conservative Baloch tribe. I was the first Mazari woman to be even educated. Nobody educated their women in the Mazari tribe in the 50s and 60s. And I'm proud to say today that I was the first Mazari, male or female, to get a PhD. And I always throw it in the Mazari tribe's face, that despite their tribal traditions and this Sardari Nizam, which is horrific, this Tumandari system which destroys our women, which subjugates our women, women will rise against it because they have no other option. Education will come to all women because out of economic necessity, if nothing else. And we will raise our voice and we will move forward. But while we are moving forward, let's not forget the plight of women in other parts of the world. Let's not especially forget the plight of Muslim women in non-Muslim states and the severe Islamophobia that they are suffering against. Do you know, in one European country, a new law has been made that a woman, if she is using the health service, can't have a choice of doctor. So everybody knows that Muslim women would prefer to go to a female gynecologist. But now this law has come, so the Muslim woman will either have to accept national health care or they will have to use the private services. So there are many ways in which discrimination is increasing and Islamophobia is increasing, and we must be aware of it. And we must make sure, doubly sure, that our minorities are not discriminated against. If I am raising my voice against discrimination and Islamophobia, then I must make sure it is my responsibility that in my country, our minorities are not discriminated against. So that is another thing that we must really do. And I think there have been many long speeches, so I will not go on much further. But I want to say, I also want to correct one little thing. We already had inheritance laws. What we have done is we have done amendments to ensure their implementation as they already existed, and that has made a big difference because now it will be much easier to enforce the inheritance laws because the lacunas have been covered. So it's not that we didn't have inheritance laws, but we have improved and amended those. I also want to point out that our ministry has already prepared an amendment bill on the harassment of women at the workplace because we felt the definition of workplace was inadequate, the definition of harassment was inadequate. So we are going to be introducing that soon in the National Assembly. Our bill is, amendment bill is ready for that. And if you go on our website, you'll find out all the hard work our ministry has done as a collectivity. And our previous secretary is sitting here, who was extremely active. Rabia is sitting right there. And our new secretary has taken up the challenges equally strongly to move further on human rights. So let me leave you with this thought that first and foremost, I am a woman, and that is how I must be respected. Then comes mother, sister, daughter. First, I am a woman, and that should be alone in the respect and the rights that are mine by law and mine because my religion gives them to me. Thank you very much. Pakistan Zindabad.